Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the next deep dive where I do members for video. Videos, private videos for members. That's what, that's what I meant to say. And this is where I cover characters that are a little bit too controversial, or the circumstances around them are too controversial, or maybe there's some kind of intrigue about them passing or something like that. And it's these videos that are a little bit too tricky to put publicly out there, in terms of publicly on YouTube and stuff like that, particularly as well with this particular character, because it is essentially an ongoing case. Now, the person whose chart I'm going to be looking at today is Ghislaine Maxwell. Yes, Ghislaine Maxwell. We know a lot. Well, this is a person that has been very kind of prominent in the news over the last 18 months or so, I think is fair to say. And this is a very controversial character. And just as a little kind of summing up for anyone that may not be familiar with this character, this is a woman who is a very close friend of Prince Andrew and the infamous Jeffrey Epstein, who of course is a convicted sex trafficker and paedophile. And she's had a very, very close relationship with him for a very long time. She is known as a socialite, where she is rubbed and mixed and rubbed shoulders with the rich and famous for decades, including Prince Andrew, who she is very close friend with. And of course, Prince Andrew is wanted under investigation for lots of stuff that has happened at these Epstein parties. And if one will remember, there was a disastrous interview that he did on the BBC. This is Prince Andrew with Emily Maitlis, and it just all went south. Yeah, so he's had to kind of effectively retire from his royal duties and essentially hide behind the protection of his mother, the Queen. And maybe at some point I'll do a deep dive on Prince Andrew to see what will happen there. But I'd be very surprised if he's held to account, or he's basically politely refused to cooperate with any of the investigations. But this is all water under the bridge. This is well known. But what I wanted to do, I wanted to look at Ghislaine's chart just to understand the factors that were going on. Now, we need to understand that Ghislaine Maxwell, her father was Robert Maxwell. Now, this is a man that's been involved in all sorts of, scandal and fraud and stuff like that, which I will go into. And you can see that prominently in her chart. And he was found in November 1991 floating in the sea, very close to his yacht, which was actually called the Lady Ghislaine. He named it after his daughter. So they've got this very almost remarkable relationship, and we'll go into the chart. It was speculated at the time that it was death by misadventure, but Ghislaine thinks otherwise, and she thinks her father was murdered. She is now currently, due to her involvement with Epstein and organizing these parties, she is currently in prison, awaiting trial in America. So let's just start with the beginning. Now, there are certain things that we'll be looking for, in a person's chart like this, because there is so much scandal, and secret and dodgy behavior. And as you know, folks, you've been watching my videos for a while now, particularly of those that are watching the private videos as well. And one of the things we need to look at, of course, is the 8th house. Remember, the 8th house, which I refer to as sex, death, and rock and roll. This is where all of the sketchy stuff, can happen. 12th house can be a bit sketchy, even the 4th house, which is a very private house, but it's always about the 8th. And you will not be surprised to learn that there is significant action going on there. So we're going to look at that in a minute. But let's start at the beginning. So Ghislaine Maxwell, she was born on the December 25th, so Christmas Day, 1961. This is what I could find at 13:20 p.m. So 3:20 p.m. She was the last of 9 children. Yeah, the last of 9. Yeah. And her mother was a scholar. So if you think about that, 9 children, of course, that is a lot of siblings. And it would also imply that the mother is strong in some kind of way. Yeah, because you have to be strong to have 9 kids. Yeah, let's just put it that way. I mean, without things falling out and all that kind of stuff, you have to be strong to have 9 children. So what are some of the indications of this? So if we just look at the beginning here, first off, Ghislaine is a Taurus ascendant, and that is very important. It's very, very important. For Taurus ascendants, all Taurus ascendants, Saturn is a strong planet. It's the Yoga Karka. Yeah? What does that mean? A Yoga Karka has the ability to do a lot of very powerful things just on its own because it rules powerful houses. The powerful houses are angles and trines. So for all Taurus ascendants, planet Saturn is the ruler of the 9th house and the 10th house. The 9th house is a trine, the 10th house is an angle, and they're both actually 2 very powerful houses. And you'll see here her Saturn is in Capricorn, yeah? So the ruler of these 2 houses is very, very powerful. So there is that element there. So for Taurus people, Saturn helps them out a lot. However, Jupiter becomes a difficult planet. Yeah, Jupiter, which is, is a great benefic and stuff like that, can deal a lot with, children and good luck, fortune, philosophy, languages, politics, all of that kind of stuff, religion. And it can also be another indicator of the father as well. Actually, it's the sun, as we know, is the father, but so Jupiter can be as well. Jupiter represents the significant men in a woman's life, yeah? Or anyone's life for that matter anyway. And it is a tricky planet for Taurus people because it rules the 8th house and it rules the 11th house. Yeah, so we'll get into that and we'll work our way around the chart. So again, like I said, she was born on Christmas Day 1961. Her mother was called Elizabeth and was a French scholar. Yeah, she was a French scholar. So if you think, what are scholars all about? They are very learned people, yeah, very learned people. And they deal a lot with writing and communication and all of that kind of stuff. So you would expect the moon, which represents the mother, to be strong. And when we look here, we see the moon is in the sign of Cancer, yeah? So the moon is in its own sign. That makes the moon very powerful, and it shows that the mother has some kind of high aptitude. On top of that, we see it's in the 3rd house. Now, the 3rd house also deals with siblings. Yeah, the 3rd house also deals with siblings. So if we look here, let's just remind ourselves. So what's the 3rd house? It deals with the hands and the upper lungs and the hearing. It deals with courage, life force, primary thoughts, acquired skills, the creative arts, competition, siblings, as I said, sales, travel, writing, self-employment, entertainers of all kinds, self-made money, and all forms of communication. So, of course, we can see the mother has this high aptitude for communication, skill, all of that stuff. And, of course, she would be being a scholar. Yeah, we can see here. And also as well, it puts the moon opposite the 9th house, yeah, which is also about scholarly pursuits, etc., and all that kind of stuff. So we can see here the mother's got a very high aptitude. But there is a problem in Denmark. We look here, there's Rahu. Now, we all know Rahu on the positive side can deal with innovation, technology, and the future. Rahu is materialistic. Rahu likes fame. But whenever you see the nodes of the moon or the nodes with any planet, you know, there's always something there. It particularly Rahu. Rahu deals with extremes. Both the nodes actually deal with extremes, but particularly Rahu. When you see Rahu with the moon, what it does is it amps up the moon. So here we can see that already the moon is already quite powerful and quite strong, but here with Rahu, it amps it up even more. Now remember as well, the moon is all about nurturing, yeah? And the moon is all about what? Children, yeah? So the mother's had a lot of children, yeah? You know, and she's got a lot of siblings, yeah? Third house, siblings. So we can see that together. There is almost like an excess of siblings. Also as well, it will also indicate that there may be one or two problems with the siblings. One or two of them may be an extreme character, or extreme things may happen. Also as well, the nakshatra, the star cluster that this is happening in is in Aslesha. Now, the sign of Cancer is made up of Purnavasu, the early part, which means return of the light. It's the early over part here. It's around about 3 degrees 20 minutes in. Then you have Pushya, which is the classic interpretation of Cancer, completely contained within Cancer. That's very nurturing, scholarly, and all of that stuff. And then the last part of Cancer is Aslesha. Now, Aslesha can be a tricky nakshatra. It's an incredible nakshatra as well. On the positive side, it deals with Kundalini. It deals with metaphysics. It deals with the hidden side of life. It deals with meditation and going deep, deep within. It's kind of quite scorpionic in a way. It's a nakshatra that is ruled by Mercury, however, so it deals with a lot of intelligence. Yeah, Aslesha is a very intelligent nakshatra, and it's got a lot to do with wealth and the enjoyment of wealth, and even a bit of hedonism. In the shadow side, it can deal with mental illnesses, deceit, and extreme forms of manipulation. But also as well, this nakshatra is known as the entwiner. Yeah, Aslesha is known as, it's the embrace. It's the part of Cancer that can become very clingy. Yeah, this is sometimes where the negative perception of Cancerians comes in, can become very clingy and emotionally manipulative. That's very much seen as the shadow side of Cancer. So she's got two planets here, and Rahu is also known for what? Lying. Yeah. Aslesha is also associated with poison. Yeah. So here, now, it doesn't necessarily mean that the mother is poisonous or whatever, but there will be that energy there. If we think about, you know, her life, there is, of course, that element there of poison or corruption in some kind of way. But the third house also deals with communication. So what it shows is that Ghislaine has this tremendous gift for manipulating others, yeah? Or being a very smooth talker in some way, yeah? Because remember, this is still the third house of communication. And Aslesha, the animals associated with these are the nagas, the dragons, the serpents, yeah? And if you think, a serpent has what? A forked tongue, but it can taste the air. So what this does is it would give Ghislaine a tremendous skill in being able to almost kind of absorb and sense and taste the proclivities, shall we say, of her friends and clients. She will just instinctively know what people want, what they desire, yeah? Even if it's an unexpressed desire, she will have a sense for it. Yeah, so already we see there's a lot going on here. So there is that, but it also shows that something extreme will happen with at least one of the siblings. Now, 2 days after she was born on Christmas Day in 1961, there was a tragedy in the family. Yeah. Now remember as well, eighth house deals with things like tragedies, shocks, surprises. It deals with death. Yeah. And her 15-year-old brother, Michael, this is when I was just doing my research and stuff on her background. Michael, who's 15 years old at the time, was involved in a car accident that left him in a coma for years. I mean, she was born in 1961, and he passed away, so maybe they had to turn the machine off in 1967. So that's 6 years. At least 6 years he was in a coma for. And of course, it affected the family greatly. Of course, how could it not? And apparently her mother observed that Ghislaine was exhibiting symptoms of anorexia, even when she was a child. And the eighth house, of course, deals with all things like that. Hidden things. Hidden things that are taboo and difficult to deal with. Yeah. So that was fascinating. And when we get to Ghislaine's eighth house, there is a planet there that is an indicator of siblings that is in a bit of a problem. So there's that. If we go now here to the fourth house. Now remember, what is the fourth house? So if we look here, the fourth house deals with the receptive heart, deals with the fourth chakra and the emotions, deals with the mother, the ancestors, real estate, history, vehicles, the storehouse, happiness, things that are underground. Deals with the emotions, honesty, or even dishonesty. Comforts and luxuries, master degrees and doctorates, homeland, stomach, the stomach and the breasts. And it's a Kendra house. It's an angular house. So after the first house, the fourth house is the next angle. So of course, if you think about it, why are the angles so important? Because the first house is a body. Yeah. So to live on earth, you need to have a body. But the next angle is very, very important, because to be able to do anything on earth of any significance, you need a what? A house. Yeah, you need a roof over your head. So the fourth house deals with real estate, and we see here that there were two quite extreme planets in Ghislaine's fourth house. Now, planet Uranus is what? The planet of sudden shocks and surprises. It is the planet of separation, but it kind of can give a blessing as well. But it always gives a shock first, and it turns out to be a blessing later. But also as well, when you look here is Pluto. Yeah, wherever Pluto is, there is an extreme of something. Yeah, something can go to the extremes, be it good or bad, but Pluto is extreme. Now we know already that Pluto on his own symbolizes the eighth house on his own. Yeah, wherever he is, there's going to be some eighth house energy there. Yeah, so let's remind ourselves of the eighth house. I mean, you probably know this off by heart by now, because I'm always quoting it, but you know, with these dodgy people, you know, this is what happens. Well, not everyone's dodgy, but do you know what I mean? So here we are. So what's the eighth house? Which I call the house of sex, death, and rock and roll. Now, it can deal with coal mines and gems, espionage and lottery wins. You know, it's not all bad, you know, the eighth house. It's not all bad. I must speak up for it. It is not all bad. But it deals with traumas, transformation wills, surrender, life insurance, psychology, addictions, disgrace, metaphysics, bankruptcy, inheritance, shamans, taxes, yeah, money from others, corruption, astrology, life force, kundalini, and shamanism, and all that stuff. Yes, you can see the eighth house is a heavyweight house. My God, anytime there's planets in there, even if it's just one, but when you've got a stellium in there, it's even more pronounced. So when we look here, we've got an eighth house factor going on with real estate, which can also give unusual real estate, yeah, and an intensity. Now, Ghislaine, she grew up in a place that was called Headington Hill Hall in Oxford, and it is a 53-bedroom mansion. So there you go. There's the extreme, yeah? some kind of extreme and something very unusual. Uranus is unusual, so we can see something extreme and unusual in regards to real estate. And she's always had pretty much wonderful real estate when you read through it throughout her life. You know, she's lived in remarkable places, and she's even lived in a property that belonged to an Iranian friend that was opposite. Oh God, I've just forgotten the park. If you think of Manhattan, and you've got the park. The name of it's just gone completely out of my head. Oh my God. It's even got something meadow in there. Central Park. There we are. Gosh, got there in the end. So there is this thing. She even sold real estate at one point. And this obviously wouldn't have been little properties. This would have been big properties. Yeah. But if we dig a little bit deeper now, we need to remember that the fourth house also deals with the heart. Yeah. The fourth chakra, a sense of compassion. Yeah. For others. But she's got this eighth house entity in there. So it can show that there is this kind of deep power struggles within the heart, yeah, that are of an eccentric nature. We need to remember, ultimately, Uranus is very eccentric. And also as well, what's interesting here is Leo, of course, is made up of 3 components as well. All the signs of the zodiac, 2.5 technically components. The early part of Leo is Magha. And this deals with the throne and ancestors. Yeah. This is where they say the throne is one from the kingdom. The next part of Leo is called Purva Falguni, and it's all about pleasure, relaxation. And then the latter part of Leo is Uttara Falguni, which actually goes round to the earlier part of Virgo. And that's about the maintenance of the kingdom. It's all about partnerships and relationships and stuff like that. This is where all of the maintenance happens. And this is often as well another reason why Leos are educators, but also managers as well. This is the part where the kingdom is managed. Yeah. So if we look here, her Uranus is at 7 degrees and 3 minutes, and that's very significant because that is conjunct a fixed star called Regulus. Yeah, this is a very famous star, and it is a star that's in the heart of the lion. And what it does is it deals with leadership, kingship of all kinds. Yeah, of all kinds. A certain Duc Larange has Mars conjunct Regulus in his first house, yeah, in Leo. Oh my goodness, yeah. And we all know what a piece of work he is, yeah. Let me just slurp this a little bit. So what does this mean? What this means is that anyone who's got a planet sort of like within 2 to 3 degrees of Regulus, so Regulus goes between 5 and 6 degrees. 5 and 6 degrees. So if you've got a planet 3 degrees either side, you know, that's going to be a strong conjunction. Some people say 1.5 or less. I mean, that would be the most powerful. I mean, you know, which is literally, say, like with Dr. Larange, his Mars is literally right on top. But 3 degree orb either side is still very powerful. And what it means is it does create a leader of some kind, but it also means that one will deal with powerful people. Yeah, it's got a lot to do with power, you know, leaders, leaders of a global nature. And this is definitely something that is part of Ghislaine's life. But here it is Uranus. So it shows that there is an eccentricity there. There's something unusual there. In terms of these leaders that she's dealing with, there's something unusual about them, or something even shocking. Isn't that interesting? And then when we look at, and this is retrograde as well, which means there's karma attached to this planet. And look, her Pluto is retrograde as well. Now her Pluto is at 16 degrees 45 minutes, which is slap bang in Purva Falguni. Now what's Purva Falguni about? Pleasure, relaxation, hedonism even. And here, she's got Pluto in Purva Falguni. And remember, Pluto represents the 8th house on its own. So she has got this very excessive planet, which can deal with the dark night of the soul on its own. But remember as well, what does it deal with? Pluto in the negative deals with things like sex trafficking, sex work, can deal with bondage. It can deal with abduction, sexual abuse. Yeah. Pluto deals with mafioso. It deals with dark money. Yeah, because it can, like Pluto can give an extreme amount of wealth. Yeah. It's the thing. It's every planet has its ups and downs. Pluto deals with the extremes, either extreme wealth or extreme debt. It's here in the 4th house, which is an angle. Yeah. So those extremes of real estate. But the 4th house also deals with vehicles, but also boats. Yeah. Her father owned yachts, and one of them was named after her, the Lady Ghislaine. She spent a lot of time on yachts and boats, and that's where a lot of these parties happened. Yeah. But there's something extreme there about that pleasure. Yeah, because Purva Falguni is about seeking pleasure and relaxation. So there's an 8th house quality to that pleasure. What has she been implicated in? The child trafficking, the sex parties on yachts and islands out of the public view. Yeah. And this is also within the heart chakra. So we can see here something extreme in the heart, very, very hedonistic. And when we also take into account Ashutosh, which also has a shadow side of extreme hedonism, yeah, and indulgence and luxuries, this is really kind of looking, really something kind of quite deep and something not quite right. She's also a Taurus ascendant as well, and Taurus is known as the most sensual of the signs, particularly Rohini, which is where her ascendant is. So there's already a great desire for materialism, and I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad thing for Taurus. There are millions, think of the billions of, hundreds of millions of people that are Taurus in the world, yeah, have a Taurus ascendant. But what Taurus does is it sensitizes a person for sensuality and pleasure, yeah. Taurus is the female expression of Venus, yeah? So we need to look at the condition of Venus to see how she is engaging her senses. The condition, the dignity of Venus will have a huge influence over how that sensuality is expressed. One of the positive ways or positive expressions of Taurus, of course, is music, food, the arts, either buying artwork or being an artist, singing, being a performer, managing assets. Taurus is also the sign of assets, money, yeah? It's the natural ruler of the 2nd house because it's the 2nd sign of the zodiac. This is why when we look at someone's 2nd house, we can see what was the environment like in the family. If we look here, Ghislaine's 2nd house is in Gemini. Now, there's no planets in here, but look at all of that drishti, yeah, coming from the 8th house, all of that drishti onto the 2nd. And it's in the sign of Gemini. So it shows, of course, that there was, a lot to do with communication and media in the home. One of the things, so in this 53-bedroom mansion that she grew up in Headington Hill Hall, it was also the headquarters of Pergamon Press, yeah, which was run by her father, Robert Maxwell. Media. Gemini is media. The 2nd house is the home, growing up. And look at all of this drishti, yeah? So it shows that 2nd house is very activated. Do you see how literal it can be? you know, how literal Vedic astrology is. You can literally just look at the chart if you've got the birth time right. And this is, and of course, as you keep watching these videos, it will make more and more sense as I, of course, go through the planets. But we can see here how this energy works, how it manifests in a person's chart. She literally had, her father ran a media company from her home. Yeah. And so here, and of course, fourth house is real estate. So if we go around here, let's look at the sixth house. Now, what does the sixth house deal with? The sixth house deals with health and overcoming obstacles. It deals with the stomach as well. And it deals with divorce, pets, lawsuits, debts, food and diet, accidents, thieves. It deals with enemies, challenging competition, police and military. But it also deals with practical skills, repetitive tasks, coaching and day job. It deals with therapies and routines. But it also deals with hotels and restaurants. And it is also known as the saint and sinner part of a zodiac chart. Isn't that interesting? And look at the planet she's got here. It's Neptune, god of the sea, the oceans. Now, her Neptune is on its own, and that's actually quite a good thing, actually. Really, you want Neptune on his own. And he's in the sign of Libra. Neptune is considered the higher octave of Venus. And he's also the co-ruler of Pisces. Yeah, but this is the god of the sea. Now remember, it's in the sign of Libra, which means it belongs to Venus. And remember, Venus also deals with what? Boats. Yeah, luxury transport and all this stuff. It is also as well, the Libra is the masculine expression of Venus. So this also deals with legality. Yeah, it also deals with the legal profession, judges, lawyers, all of that kind of thing. It also means as well that Ghislaine, it could be potentially a very seductive talker, can make very seductive arguments, should be very convincing in many ways. Neptune is also the planet of secrecy, lies, scandals, yeah, along with the eighth house. Things that are hidden, mystery, yeah, things that are hidden, mystery, mysterious events, gaslighting, yeah, also deals with gaslighting, casting illusions. But it can also deal with beauty in the extreme and sensuality in the extreme. And here it being in Libra, where it's almost as if this Neptune is exalted. It's very, very powerful, but it also deals as well with accidents. How did the father pass? Yeah. Essentially, they say he drowned. But remember what Ghislaine has said. She said, I don't think it was suicide, you know, because they were saying, oh, maybe it was suicide. She said, I think he was murdered. Yeah. And when one considers how loaded her eighth house is and how that she's got Neptune in the house of enemies, but there is mystery and there is secrecy, I think she is onto something. I think she's right. Yeah, I think she's right. This would very much indicate. And then when we go to her eighth house, we can investigate that all the more. So let's have another slurp. I just love these little these caramel macchiato things from Starbucks. I mean, it's delicious. I do love an iced coffee, I must say. So let's go to the eighth house, which really explains everything. Yeah, explains everything. But this is the deep dive. So if we look here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 planets in the eighth house. In the eighth house. Hallelujah. Oh my goodness, that is a lot. Anyone who's got that many planets, because you only need one. You know, one planet, you know, you can possibly, you know, extract the positives of the eighth house. And, you know, you're not going to have so much scandal and drama in your life, but you'll always get some. When you got 2, then you're like, yeah, that's a bit more. Once you've got 3 or more, a stellium, that's it. Your life is going to be very dramatic. So I want to remind you of the sibling. Remember I mentioned Michael, the sibling? Now remember the eighth house also deals with accidents, scandals, shocks, surprises, shame, disgrace, corruption. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. The dark side of sexuality, possessiveness, yeah, things like sex trafficking, all that gubbins, yeah. The 8th house can deal with that. And here we go. So if we look here, you'll see Mercury is here, Mars is here, and Venus. Wow. And they are conjunct the sun. There's the sun. Now, let's not forget, the sun is what? A malefic. Yeah? And what it does is, any planets that are in the same house, it tends to burn. Yeah? But when they're close, it's combust. Yeah? So all of these planets are agitated. Agitated. And there is an element here of shaming as well, which is that when you have malefics in a house, they can shame each other, which means that they can just make other planets feel bad. The sun shames, Mars shames, and so does Saturn. Yeah, so look, we've got Sun and Mars here, effectively shaming Mercury and Venus, and Mercury, Mars, and Venus are all combust, which means they've been weakened in some way. Mars represents siblings, yeah? But brothers in particular. Boom! That's the brother, isn't it? Remember, the 8th house is what? Accidents. So there's a brother that was involved in an accident. And he ended up, what? Being in a coma, and eventually he died, yeah? It was a shock, yeah? The 8th house is shocking. But let's not forget, the sun is also what? The father. The father is involved, implicated in scandals and shame and disgrace in some way. Let's go back to Robert Maxwell. Now he did a lot of jet setting and stuff, and Ghislaine is generally accepted as his favorite child, yeah? They clearly had a very, very kind of strong bond. Who knows if there could have been even more there, particularly as well with her ascendant being in Rohini. This can also speak about the father sometimes having an over-attachment to the daughter. Let's just put it that way. Doesn't necessarily mean something nefarious happened, but this is a pattern, yeah? Donald Trump's got this as well. You know, he's always talking about Ivanka. Anyway, so here, now, remember in November 1991, he was found dead, tragically, floating in the sea next to his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine. So, I mean, there you go. That's already death and scandal. So, but there was a time she had to fly to New York to deliver some kind of letter. And it turned out it was something that was associated with a scandal. And the scandal was that it was his scheming to steal $200 million from shareholders in the Berlitz company. Yeah. And it was a Japanese-owned company, and it deals with language and education and leadership training. And the company was founded in 1978 and based in New Jersey, and now owned by the Benessi Group. Now remember that. Language, education, and leadership. Yeah, we need to remember that. Now these are often 9th house associations, and the 9th house deals with the father. Yeah. So if we look here, the 8th house is in Sagittarius. Who is the ruler of Sagittarius? It's Jupiter. Yeah, Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and it also rules Pisces in old money. Yeah. So remember that. And remember as well that Jupiter represents the significant men in a woman's life. It can be the father, particularly boyfriends and spouses as well, or the husband. Yeah, but significant men. It can also deal with the father as well. So Jupiter is the 8th house lord. There it is, Sagittarius. So you need to look to see where the 8th house lord goes. Wherever the 8th house lord goes, it will bring the energy of the 8th house with it. Jupiter goes to the 9th house, which is the house of the father. Yeah, but what does it deal with? 9th house deals with higher learning, gurus and teachers, beliefs, politics, publishing. Yeah, publishing, travels, law and lawmakers, religion, fanaticism, spirituality, innate inspirations, and education. Look at that. The father, who's got this 8th house energy, because he's in the 8th house, his dealings, yeah, because the 8th house lord, Jupiter, is in the 9th. So Jupiter is bringing this energy of the 9th house and the 11th house. The 11th house deals with great gains. What did the father do? He's, was wanting to steal the 200 million. Now, I'm not sure if he succeeded or not, but anyway, it was there. Yeah, it was there, to steal that money. 11th house, great gains. 8th house, scandals. And it's in the 9th house, dealing with what? Education. This company. So Berlitz, the Berlitz shareholders, which I think were defrauded, remember, it was a language and education and leadership company. That's what it dealt with. That's what the 9th house is about. And this Jupiter here is also debilitated. Remember, Jupiter is debilitated in the sign of Capricorn. So it means the significant men in her life are debilitated in some kind of way. And sometimes when I've seen this in a person's chart, in a woman's chart, it can mean as well that the husband, sadly passes away early or something like that. Or he puts his wife or spouse in some kind of pickle. Yeah. So if you think this is also representing her father, yeah, because it's in the 9th house. So her father, was implicated in what? In scandals, yeah, all sorts. Also as well, and I remember this was a massive scandal at the time. So I've written here, Robert, after his death, found floating in the sea near the Canary Islands. And the Lady Ghislaine, as I said, the yacht, in November 1991, it emerged that he appropriated the pension funds of the Mirror Group newspapers, a company which he ran, and owned many of the shares, and it was for £440 million. Oh my goodness. And that government went missing. So the family, the Maxwell family, and the government had to dig into their pockets to try and basically refund 32,000 people that lost out. Wow. Shame and disgrace, corruption. Yeah, look, all that. There's the father there. But these planets are combust, they're weakened. What is Venus? Venus deals with partnerships. Venus deals with relationships of all kinds. Venus deals with marriage. Venus deals with what? Women. Whenever you see Mars and Venus together, it's a bit tricky because they say Mars basically stabs any planet that he's with, yeah? That thing there, that pointy bit is a spear. But look, this is women of all kinds. This can also show the young women, yeah? This can also show sexual aggression as well, or passion. It's a very heated combination whenever you see Mars with Venus. And then here as well, you've got planet Mercury. Now, this is very significant, and this has just dawned on me right now. Now, Mercury actually picks up strength in the 8th house, but it doesn't do so well in the sign of Sagittarius because it belongs to his enemy, Jupiter. Venus is neutral in Sagittarius, and Mars actually does quite well, does very well, and so does the Sun. Guess what? You may have heard me mention before, Mercury, planet Mercury, deals with children, young persons that are prepubescent, yeah? Deals with young people, very young, yeah? Venus is sort of like teenagers and upwards, yeah? Teenagers and upwards going into the 20s. Mars also deals with youth as well, and that's sort of later teens up until about 25. So we see here, there is a lot here to do with young people, but particularly that Mercury, yeah? That's prepubescent. What is all the scandals about all these underaged girls, yeah? And they're having what? All of these sex parties. Here, look, you can literally see the party in the 8th house. And these planets are combust, which means they're weakened. It means the moral sort of good side of the planet, what that planet represents, can be weakened in some kind of way. It doesn't diminish the intelligence or anything like that, but it just means the virtue of the planet has been combusted in some kind of way. It can actually even create obsessions. So here with Mars, can start to become, quite cruel and quite dysfunctional, although technically it is strong because it's in the sign of Sagittarius. But if you think of her relationship with Epstein, yeah, apparently she was running his household. Yeah, she was also known as the lady of the house. He described her as one of his best friends. She was the longer term girlfriend. Mars also deals with managing things, being technical, deals with engineers. She also learnt programming from her father. Yeah, so we see that Mars is quite strong, but it is combust. So it means some of the moral virtues of Mars are sort of like knocked off, blunted. Yeah. Venus as well. Venus is a beautiful planet, but when she's combust, that can increase hedonism, even sex addiction, particularly as well when she's conjunct Mars. And then Mercury. Mercury is about the calculative ability, the decision making. When it's in fire signs, Mercury can get a bit overheated, but here it's combust. So again, it's kind of like, she's obviously like a good planner, yeah, because look, this is the kingdom after all, yeah, with the sun. But what is she planning, and is it coming from a virtuous place? Well, no, of course it wasn't, because it's all in the 8th house, which is a difficult house anyway, but they combust the sun, and then the lord of the house is debilitated, yeah. And I want to show you something fascinating. Even though her Saturn is strong, but I want to show you something fascinating. And as you know, I'm always talking about Mahadasha sequences. And it shows when planets have prominence in terms of energetic prominence in a person's life, and the soul is put in the back seat of a certain car, and then you're driven along. Now, what we need to remember is that there's friendships and stuff like that. What you need to remember is that Jupiter and Venus are not friends. Yeah, they're both benefics, but they're just not friendly to each other. So when they have a Mahadasha sequence together, sometimes it can be challenging, but it all depends on the dignity of both those planets, the houses they rule, and where they go. So remember this. Venus is combust in the 8th house with Mars. Yeah, which is anger and aggression and sexuality and stuff like that. She rules the 6th house, yeah, of accidents and litigation and stuff like that. And she rules the 1st house, yeah, because via Taurus. So actually, for Taurus people, Venus is a little bit of a sketchy planet, even though she is the ruler of the chart. So wherever she goes, because she's the chart ruler for Taurus, wherever she goes, that is what the life will be all about. Yeah, wherever the chart ruler goes, that's the preoccupation. So you got the ruler of the 1st and the 6th in the 8th house. So that's already Jules music. Jupiter, where, as I've said already, Jupiter is the 8th lord. Where does he go? He goes to the 9th house of the father. Yeah, but he rules great gains as well via Pisces. Yeah. The 8th house is other people's money, but it goes to the 9th house, which is the father, and it's debilitated, yeah? So, guess what? There was a period in Ghislaine's life where she had a Venus-Jupiter Mahadasha. That means both those planets were active, and the houses that they rule and everything that I've been talking about. And guess when that was? She went into Venus-Jupiter on the 15th of December, 1990. Her father passed away in November 1991. Yeah? So all of this scandal, all of this stuff was going on with what? Her father. Yeah, all of the embezzlement, the money, the theft, everything. And I just find this remarkable. And this went on and then she went into Venus Saturn on the 15th of October 1993. So you can see this was almost a 3-year period, and in that time her father was embroiled in all sorts of scandals because of what? It deals with what? Jupiter was active, deals with great gains, yeah, but he rules the 8th house and is in the 9th house. All that stuff in terms of teaching, education, publishing. The 9th house deals with publishing, so that means it also deals with newspapers as well. And then, of course, when we look at her 3rd house as well, look, there it is, the moon with Rahu, yeah? So her life has also been involved in media and all that kind of stuff. But isn't it interesting, when the energies of those 2 planets came together, it was just a terrible combination, and there were all sorts of scandals because the 8th house became activated as well, because that's where that combust Venus was sitting, and Jupiter's debilitation, full debilitation, also became active because it's a lord of the 8th in the 9th. So all that stuff and the demise of the father. But it also means as well that the significant men in her life are, dodgy in some way. And of course, so, who was she in a relationship with for many years? Jeffrey Epstein. As we know, convicted paedophile. What happened to him? His demise as well. Now, remember, it's here in the 9th house, which deals with what? Politics as well. Politics. So she's involved with men that are involved with politics. Think of all that stuff, that Epstein, got on those powerful men, yeah? Those powerful men who are running lands. Because remember, the 4th house is homelands. These are people that run countries and stuff, yeah? Think of all those people that were there at those parties, even a certain Bill Clinton, a certain, Bill Gates, and, many others. Now, this, of course, will all emerge. And this is why, you see, I have this as a private video, because this is dealing with powerful leaders that are here at these sex parties and stuff like that. And she's got this debilitated Jupiter. So if you think the men that she becomes involved with are involved in shame and scandal in some kind of way. So here you are, you see it proved. And not only that, this Jupiter, which is a benefic, is sandwiched between 2 malefics, Saturn and Ketu. Ketu is also what? What do I call Ketu? Snip, snip. Rahu is gobble, gobble. Yeah, well, we want more of something. Ketu is snip, snip. So it shows Saturn is a separating planet as well. So she will be separated from the significant men in her life in some kind of painful way. Yeah, because this is like, they sometimes call this a scissor yoga, because it's between this benefic, this Jupiter is between 2 malefics. And here you see her Saturn is very powerful. Now, this is why in many ways that she's been lucky for many, many years. Yeah, but her luck has run out. Yeah, basically her luck has run out. But Saturn is also the planet of karma. So if we come up to the modern day where we are now, she's actually in Mars Ketu right now. She went into Mars Ketu on the 12th of April 2021. And previous to that, she was in Mars Mercury, so she's been, Mars and Mercury are not friends either. So if we look, she went into Mars Mercury on the 15th of April 2020. I think that's when she got banged up, wasn't it? I'll have to check that one out. When I do the video edit, I need to see when she actually went to prison, but to see if that panned out. But yeah, Mars Mercury on the 15th of April 2020. She went into that. Mars and Mercury are enemies. Where are they? They're in the 8th house. The 8th house can deal with incarceration, and they both combust. Yeah, so we see, terrible stuff there. I'm not necessarily saying I feel sorry for her, but we can see how the astrology happens, and when people have lots of planets in the 8th house, how it can be very tricky and challenging, because when those Mahadasha sequences come round, it means several planets, the 8th house gets activated from several different directions and affects several different areas of life simultaneously. What does Mercury rule? Rules the second house and the fifth house. Yeah, the second house, of course, is values and money. Fifth house is what? It deals with creativity, but also children. Yeah. Venus rules the sixth house and the first house, tricky combination. And Mars rules the seventh house and the 12th house. The 12th house is what? Secrets, bed pleasures, islands, yeah? Traveling abroad. And so much of that of her life was about that. Secrets, bed pleasures, things going off. Off on boats again. 12th house is oceans, but it deals with faraway lands and it deals with people from overseas, yeah? Big part of her life. So we can see that has been activated recently. 8th house can also deal with incarceration. So just to kind of sum up, because I think that's everything covered here. And also as well, one thing I should say, you'll see here, this symbol here, this is Ceres. Ceres deals with children, yeah? But it can deal with abduction in particular, yeah? Abduction. Because Ceres is the Roman name for Demeter. Demeter is the earth goddess, kind of like Gaia. And her daughter was stolen away, Persephone. Persephone, unfortunately, was sexually abused by Hades, yeah, the god of the underworld. What's the other name for Hades? Pluto, yeah. And she became queen. She became queen of the underworld, and she had to have a contract where she spent half the day in the underworld, half the year in underworld, half the year above. And that's when they say when she was above, her mother rejoiced. That gives us spring and summer. But when she was away, her mother wept. And that gave us autumn and winter. That's how they worked it out. But Persephone deals with all of those kind of elements. And Ceres deals with that as well. It's not always bad, but it can deal with abducted children. And there it is in the 12th house, which is bed pleasures and secrets. And where does the Lord of the 12th sit? It sits in the 8th. Oh, man. That is debauchery. Yeah, we're dealing with someone here who is morally bankrupt and debauched. Yeah, it's just everything. It's all 8th house. The kingdom is there. These 3 planets are combust. It's almost everything was about the parties and the scheming and the sex and the indulgence and the excess and all of it. All of which I'm sure she has explored to the nth degree. And of course, this was about procurement as well, victims. Yeah, she was victimizing. Look, Mars with Venus, both planets combust in the 8th house, victimizing young women and girls and whoever else was around. Actually, she's probably done that much more. But now, of course, she's incarcerated, and we'll have to see what happens with a certain Ghislaine. But that gives you an idea, and that shows you just how powerful Vedic astrology is. And when I do readings for my clients and stuff like that, we talk about, I mean, not everyone's got this, yeah. Those people aren't the type that who are having consultations because they don't want anyone to know about their life, yeah. They know that they're scandalous, so there's no way that they would, go to an astrologer. But it shows this is how I read the charts. This is how you can see, and you can see how literal it is. The chart is the soul contract. If she was working in the light, yeah, if she didn't go for the low-hanging fruit, this could be someone that could be exceptionally spiritual. They would have their challenges, but they would try and turn it for good, yeah? They would want to help others, empower others, transform the lives of others. But here she's gone for the shadow, and she really has transformed the lives of others, but it's been via abuse, sexploitation, abduction, all of these horrible things, enslavement, trafficking. She went for the low-hanging fruit. So, and she's having her comeuppance, 12th house also deals with prison and incarceration. And there it is, Mars in the 8th, but the ruler of the 12th and the 7th is the litigation. What's happened? The Mercury, Mars, Mahadasha came together, Mars, Mercury, Mahadasha came together on the 15th of April 2020. She's banged up. So I need to see what exact date that is. I might just put it above when I find when she was put into custody. But either way, the energy was there. So I'm going to stop there. That's a deep dive, an hour, a look at Ghislaine. And there would be more to look forward to very soon. So next week I will do another video. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, but I'll pick something juicy. All right, thanks everyone, and see you on the next video. Cheers. And I just wanted to quickly add as well that here in Ghislaine's 8th house, these are so Venus, Mars, and the Sun are all in the nakshatra called Mula, which means tearing up by the roots. So it leads to a very kind of tumultuous life. And the deity of Mula is the goddess Nriti, the goddess of destruction. So here, what Mula can deal with in the negative is people that have struggles with addictions and self-destructive behavior. That's also a factor here. So I'm just going to slot that in because I forgot to add it. Anyway, so there we are. All good.